the cool thing about yoga, what makes it special, is intention. Moving deliberately on our mat so we can move deliberately on in our life. And the cool thing about intention is the remembering that we can choose what we want. We can choose how we want to interpret our experience. We can choose whether we want to be attached to our current story or if we want to write a new one. So this is an incredibly empowering practice. And yoga is great because it reminds us that we can do it. It reminds us that we can do it because when we put our attention on our breath and our movement in the present moment, we drop everything else. We drop what we were holding before we walked in the studio. We dropped our thoughts about what's going to come after our practice. We're just here now. And when we're right here now, we can remember who we are. We can remember our values. We can remember what we want. We can remember how we want to show up. We can remember what we want from this moment. So if you practice a sequence of postures or a pattern of breath without intention, it's just kind of like going through the motions. It's intention that puts the meaning in your motion. Intention puts the meaning in your motion. And putting meaning behind your motion, putting the why behind your action, putting the deliberation into everything you do, putting attention into everything you do is what gives your life meaning. It's, we remember that it's not the things outside of us. It's not our relationships. It's not our objects. It's not our possessions. It's not our home. It's not our cars. It's not our ability to be right or correct that gives us meaning. It's the quality of our attentiveness. It's our deliberation with what we're doing, our deliberateness with what we're doing. It's the why behind what we do. It's our intention that gives our life meaning. Yeah. And meaning is an important thing. To live with meaning is to live with color. Otherwise, we're just a little bit fatigued. Otherwise, if we're not living with meaning, if we're just going through the motions because we think we need to obtain certain things for security, if we're just going through those motions, life will feel without color. It'll feel devoid of color. It'll feel devoid of vibrancy. It'll feel devoid of meaning. So we've established that meaning is something that comes from within. It comes from a connection to what's important to you. It comes from a connection to your values, what you care about, what matters to you. And then when you keep what matters to you in the forefront of your thoughts, you're living deliberately, you're living intentionally. And when you can live intentionally, you can infuse meaning into your life. So I just got done reading this book, amazing book by Viktor Frankl called Man's Search for Meaning. Incredible book. One of my top favorites, absolutely. If not my favorite book I've ever read in my life. And obviously, as it suggests in the title, he talks about meaning and what it is and how people can find meaning in their lives. And he was able to extricate this wisdom from a situation he was in life that is just the pinnacle of suffering. He went so deeply into the depths of human suffering and came out with this wisdom that he shared with the rest of the world that we can all take. And what a gift that is. So what he had to say about meaning was this. There are like 3 different avenues where we can extract meaning. And we derive meaning from love. We can derive meaning from being the person that you show up to be for somebody else. You can derive meaning from being there for somebody you love. You derive meaning from a beloved, from being that person for your beloved. You can derive meaning from a great work, a creative project that is very meaningful to you, something that you believe in. You can derive meaning from doing work in this world that you believe is important to offer the world. And then you can derive meaning from deep suffering. So you can derive meaning from love, work, or suffering. And the last one, the suffering part, is something that we all experience to different degrees. It's all relative. One man's flavor of suffering is going to look different from another man's flavor of suffering, but it's relative. No matter what, you're gonna experience suffering if you're human. So this is an important thing to understand, that in the depths of your own flavor of suffering, in the depths of your soup of darkness, you can remember that it is possible to derive meaning from that very experience of suffering. And what determines whether you're going to extract meaning from your experience of suffering is your willingness to observe the experience and choose to engage with it from a higher state. We can allow our suffering to knock us down and turn us into bitter people, or we can allow our suffering to soften us and teach us what compassion is, and teach us what it's like to choose a high value in the face of pain. So even if you are experiencing a moment of deep suffering at this time, there is this really powerful practice of acknowledging where you are and seeing if you can extract the lesson from it, or the softening from it, or the decision to face it with grace and forgiveness and surrender. So that decision can give you meaning. And it goes back to what I was saying about how intention can infuse meaning into your life in the same way that it infuses meaning into yoga. No matter what you are doing for your meaning, whether it's deriving meaning from love, deriving meaning from your worldly work, or deriving meaning from your suffering, by acknowledging it and working with it and using your suffering to rise up and face it, and doing what you can to keep going. Like, what you learn from your resolve to keep going in the face of your suffering is gold. It's gold. So what can help us get the meaning from these three situations, whether we're lovers, workers, or sufferers, or we're all three, what we do is we use intention. It's getting back to a quiet place through a modality that works for you, breath or movement, meditation. It's getting quiet in the mind, remembering what you care about, remembering what you value, remembering how you want to show up to the world, and then setting the intention to do so, and then infusing your action with your deliberate intention to move with your values. So, intention is a big deal. Knowing what your why is, keeping your why in mind, moving with your why, acting with your why, being deliberate in life, infuses meaning into your life. We can extract meaning from all situations in our lives. It's not outside of us, it comes from within, and it comes from the way we relate with our experience. All right, thanks for listening. I love you. Goodbye.